Natalie Sideserf here of Sideserf Cake Studio, and I'm going to show you how I made this giant crayon cake. Anytime you make a cake of something very large, that's typically in real life very small, you're going to have fun. So I'm going to show you how to make your own. Let's get started. This giant crayon cake starts out with a very thin yet long piece of vanilla cake. I have my template here that I placed directly on the cake, and I just cut it to size. Next, I want to round out the crayon shape. So I'm just trimming away the bottom edges and then the top edges. It doesn't have to be perfect, as always. We're going to crumb coat it next, and that is going to fill in any little holes and gaps. To crumb coat this cake, you're just going to toss a few dollops of icing right on top. Use an offset spatula to smooth the icing out, covering the entire cake. Here I have a little scraper. It makes it extra smooth because it's bendable. Now you're gonna put that in the fridge while we work on coloring some modeling chocolate. So this is modeling chocolate with red gel food color. I want this to be more of a light red, so like a pink tone, because this is the color that's going to represent the wrapper of the crayon. You're just gonna roll out that modeling chocolate. You want it to be long and skinny, just like our cake. Place it right over top and work it around the cake. Trim away both ends. And you're also going to trim away the excess skirt on each side of the cake. I used a pointed tool and just pushed the chocolate under the cake just to make it nice and clean. So I take my template and I make little marks, and these are the marks that I'm going to score and trim away the chocolate. You don't want to poke through to the cake, you just want to trim the chocolate, and then just peel the modeling chocolate right off the cake. Next, I'm going to take some bright red modeling chocolate, and this is going to represent the actual waxy crayon. Place it right over top of the cake and blend it in right up to the pink tones. Trim away the excess chocolate, and you're just gonna clean up the end. You want it to be kind of soft, nice and round, just like a real crayon. Then we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Trim away the chocolate, blend it a little bit, clean it up. And then we're going to add the crayon tip. So I just rolled the modeling chocolate up in a ball, and then I rolled it a little tighter on one end to create this cone shape. I wanna make sure that the bottom of the cone, the base, is a little bit smaller than the size of the cake end. Then I rolled up a little bit of modeling chocolate, nice and soft, placed it onto the cake, and then placed the tip on. That was enough to hold that chocolate in place. Then you blend the cone into the cake. Make sure the tip of the cone is nice and flat too, just like a real crayon. Here I have some black modeling chocolate, and I rolled it out, you can see, very, very thin. I tried to make it as thin as possible. You can also use fondant for this, and fondant, when you're working at this scale, is a bit easier to use. I just happen to have a bunch of modeling chocolate around, so I typically use modeling chocolate, even though fondant would be a little bit easier. So you cut out 2 strips, and then a wavy line in between each of them. Then we're gonna place those on the cake, leaving a very small space between the 2 pieces, just like a real crayon. Then you cut off the excess chocolate and kind of push it under the cake with a knife. So just trim it away and use your knife to kind of shove it right under the cake. Now I'm going to take my template, place it directly on the crayon, and I'm going to trace out each of the letters. You can have this saying whatever you'd like. So I have mine saying Sideserf, which is my last name. You can have it say anyone's name. You can have it say literally anything. So I'm tracing out the line, just leaving indentations on the chocolate underneath, and then I'm gonna go in and hand paint the black. The reason I'm not using modeling chocolate or fondant for these letters is because it's a specific font and it's very tiny. So cutting out these tiny letters with fondant or chocolate would be kind of a pain, and I find that if I just hand paint them, it's much faster for me. Since we trace those lines onto the chocolate, it makes painting this really easy. Next, I have my rolled out thin black modeling chocolate, and I'm going to trace around the letters and then trace around the circle. Next, you want to take a blade and cut around all those lines you traced. You can peel away the outside layer of chocolate, and then you're gonna put this in the fridge. It takes about less than a minute for it to harden, and that allows me to punch out that shape really easily. So you just place it right over top of the letters. It should all match up because we use the same template for both. So the last thing we wanna do to make this crayon super realistic is by adding a very, very thin layer of shortening. This is going to make the crayon look nice and waxy. You want to make sure that you keep the light pink paper portions matte. You only want the waxiness to be on the bright red areas. So I ended up adding the word cakes under Sideserf. And I wanted it to look as if it was written in crayon. So I just put a very, very thin amount of modeling chocolate right on my cake board, and then I took a tool and just pulled away at the edges so they looked nice and textured. And there you have it, a giant realistic crayon cake. Perfect for a kid's birthday. Personally, I'd love it too. Thank you so much for watching. If you like that video, you should subscribe to our channel because we put out new cake videos every Monday. If you want to gain access to some behind the scenes stuff, you can go to patreon.com/sideserfcakes and become a patron.